another episode of the Wanderlust Wealth Show. Today, I have Sara Robinson, who is a fabulous, phenomenal real estate investor, a new mom too, and I cannot wait to share with you her story about everything and also just get into some real talk here, okay?
Yes, that's what we do.
Welcome, Sara. So, Sara, why don't you tell everyone, like, before the real estate, before everything, like, who was Sara?
You know, Sara, before real estate, was going through it. I was in my 20s. I'm now 33. But before real estate, I was in my 20s, kind of like in that weird headspace. I don't know if you felt that, but just kind of like an identity crisis. Like,
Girl.
Am I allowed to cuss on here? Or
Yeah,
no?
go
like,
for it.
who the fuck is Sara? Like,
I feel like I'm just getting out of that,
okay,
honestly.
yeah. How old are you?
29.
Okay, that was my era. So during, I would say 27 to 29, I was very confused. I had that realization of like, who am I? What am I meant to do? What is my purpose? I need more, you know? So I think I'm just now figuring out who I am outside of real estate, you know, but if you ask me who I was before then, girl, I'm not sure. I was just going, you know, day by day with life. I've always been a very upbeat, happy, positive, optimistic person, outgoing. I love, like, passion projects. I'm a project girly. I was in the entertainment industry. I worked for events and marketing. So I worked for iHeartRadio, and that's what I did during my 20s. So I think that was kind of what caused the confusion inside of me. You know, I was just in this really awesome, fun job. Girl, I was literally, they would fly me to Jamaica and Miami and Vegas for all of these concerts that I would help facilitate. And then I started to realize that I wasn't making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'm getting older. My fiance is now, you know, climbing the corporate ladder, making fucking bank. I'm having a blast, like, compared to his job, but I'm making shit.
Yeah.
And I was just like, now, you know, the tables are turning, or you know, my that's not the right saying. Not the tables are turning. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I'm really bad at phrases, you know? So.
Me too, though. Like, every single saying, I'm like, I think that's it. I don't know.
Yes, I'm really bad at those. But anyways, yeah, that was like my moment for me in my late 20s. I was just like, who is Sara? So that question is very touchy for me, Olivia.
But, you know, I feel like people don't realize that happens in your, like, late 20s. There's something like, there's that switch that's like, oh, crap. Like, am I doing what I'm supposed to? I feel like I kind of went through that same thing while I was in engineering. I was kind of there going through the motions and was just like, this isn't it. Yeah. Like, there's something off. There's something wrong with that. And you kind of have to, like, listen to yourself and be like, okay, cool. So we know this isn't it. Then what are we going to do?
Yeah. It's like a gut, like an intuition you have, right? It's like, everything's fine. I'm happy. I'm thriving. I'm loving life. Like, but something is off, you know? And that really starts to, like, rock the boat, you know? And then you have to do some, like, soul searching.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing about you too is, like, you didn't actually want to get into real estate. No,
I did not. Yeah.
You had, like, no real desire. So what even got you to that point? Like, how did you end up here?
So yeah, great. I'm glad I brought up the, you know, my, you know, midlife crisis, because it'll help explain the transition to real estate better. So I left iHeartRadio because there wasn't room for growth. I wasn't making good money. So I was like, okay, it's time for me to leave this industry and find something that makes a little bit more sense for me to grow in long term. So I ended up getting another job at the Ronald McDonald Charities. So it was right up my alley. It was still event-based, and it was like a good purpose. So I really felt aligned with that job. But I hated it. I fucking hated it. The people were just not my kind of people that worked there. They were like just dark clouds, I felt like. And I'm so the opposite. Mm-hmm. So when you were such a... girl, I'm to my own horn. I'm all right. I'm a fucking ray of sunshine, okay?
I love that.
I am, you know? So when I come into a room and I can sense that that's not received well, I tone it down, you know?
Oh, for
I'm like, okay, that's not people don't like that here.
Well, that was like even me in engineering. And it was so funny because to be fair, I did have a lot of people who said, you know, keep that light in you. But I just kept feeling it getting dulled every single day. And like literally there's me hopping in there with like a bright yellow pantsuit and everyone else is in polos and jeans.
Yeah.
You know,
and you
like,
can't help. Yeah. It's literally like, it felt like a slow, dark, gloomy cloud just kept covering my beautiful sunshine. So finally, not finally, I mean, I ended up literally crying like every day at work. Like that's how bad it got. I was just really, really unhappy. I would complain to, you know, my husband. And that's when he started investing in short-term rentals. He was already investing in long-term rentals and he made the decision to shift over to short-term rentals. I start complaining about how unhappy I am. And it was just like perfect timing. You know, he was just like, I'm too busy in my job. I'm not going to quit. You hate your job. We have this new business that I'm starting. Like, do you have any interest in, you know, helping run all of this? And that was like, ta-da, yes, I do. And not only just because I hated my job, but because I knew short-term rentals.
Completely.
I get what short-term rentals are. We've stayed in short-term rentals. I get the like experience of it all.
And you've like run events too. So you understand like what the customer journey kind of looks like, which is huge, especially when you are in the short-term rental space.
Totally. So I saw the value that I can bring as a partner to my husband in that moment.
Totally.
But prior to short-term rentals with long-term rentals, I didn't get it. Yeah. So that's how I got involved.
Well, the funny thing is too, is like people just a lot of the time just think about the acquisition, right? They think about like, okay, I get this property. Amazing. Set it up as short-term rental. And they don't realize like a good portion of the work happens afterwards. Like once you actually have the property, you're running it, you're managing guests, you're managing cleaners, you're putting all this together. And like, I feel like just people just kind of forget that.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's why, you know, my husband, Tony, and I work really well together is because I do not care. I'm not interested. I'm not good at, you know, the acquisition aspect of it. Like we just know our strengths and weaknesses so well from the very beginning. That's why he like kind of recruited me on. He's like, I am not the best at those tiny details and the experience aspect and guest management. You are. Why don't you, you know? So I just feel like knowing what you can bring to the table is incredible. Yeah.
Totally. Well, yeah, I definitely can't imagine Tony like messaging guests with like hearts and smiley faces.
And I would say like, hey girl. Yeah. Okay. Super random and like totally off topic, but I just need to comment on this. I love how you say can't.
My British accent.
I love. Oh my God.
Like slips right. Well, the funny thing is my brother has a full British accent. What? Like straight up.
Oh
you would love him. You would love him. He's quite a hoot.
But then it's like no one says what a hoot. That's adorable.
Well, and then it's really funny because my parents sound fully African. So it's just like
I met your mom. Yeah. That is so cool. Yeah, you're so how do you say my name's?
Sarah.
Oh, yes. What the hell? That doesn't make no sense.
So it's like anything like can't water is really water. And like,
interesting.
Ranch is ranch. I don't know.
So fun. Sorry to throw you off.
No, I love that. So I guess for you, like what was really the most challenging thing about transitioning into now this like role as basically full-time like real estate investor, which you're like, what even is a real estate investor?
What is the term? I'm blanking right now. When you just like don't believe in yourself, syndrome. What syndrome? Like fraud syndrome. What's the word then? Imposter syndrome. Yeah.
There we go.
Fraud, close
enough.
So I really, really struggled with that. Yeah. So we are now 4 years in, and I feel like I'm just now getting past that. But I think, you know, just coming in and I felt like I was just like doing half of the work compared to investors that I would compare myself to, like you know, that you do it all, you know. But
not as well.
Like, but you do, you know, or there's, you know, like.
And I don't want to. Like, I'm like at that point where it's like, it's not fun to do it all yourself. It is so much better to bring on people and focus on the things that you're good at.
Right.
And like, cause I think it is at the beginning, and I get it too, because at the beginning you don't have all these resources. So you kind of have to go in and do it all yourself. But if I never have to look at a freaking spreadsheet again, analyzing a deal, I am so happy.
You would rather not? Yeah. So I think that was what I really struggled with coming into real estate was, you know, just naturally when you have a new interest, you know, start following people that have the same interests and you start listening to podcasts and then you start seeing other people that are doing it 10 times better than you and you get intimidated. You start, not believing in yourself. And I had a lot of that. So Tony, is in the Bigger Pockets community and it's like, legit investors, that were like killing it by themselves. A lot of women that I look up to. And it was very intimidating to me. Like Avery Carl, I admire her so much because I think she's such a confident, like badass businesswoman in this space, but she scares me. And I've told her this, but I'm like, I just look up to her so much. And I struggled with that a lot. I'm like, I don't need to be Avery Carl. I'm different, Well,
and the crazy thing is like so many people look up to you and you just don't even realize it.
I know.
Right?
And I hear that when we host like meetups or something and people say that to me and I'm just like, oh my God, that is so cool. We need to give ourselves more credit as investors and just anybody, not even just investors. I feel like naturally humans just, don't give ourselves credit for what we are good at. We just like look at the negative, what we're lacking and we focus on that more.
There's a book called The Gap and the Gain, which literally talks about this concept. And as you guys know, I literally always say books during my podcast episode, so I'll make sure to link it. But it talks about how like we need to be focusing on the gain. It's like, where are we like excelling in? Where are we thriving? Like there's always going to be some gaps, right? There's always going to be some gaps. But what good is it for you to focus on that's pulling you down versus what's going to propel you forward?
Totally. Yeah.
No, completely.
That's a good book. I'm going to read that.
Yeah, it's really good. And I think his name is like Dan Martell or something. Okay. All of his books are really, I've read like way too many of them like in the last few months.
Oh, awesome. It's your midlife crisis.
Oh yeah. And it's like, I'm like insane when it comes to reading books and podcasts. Like I listen to everything at 2 times speed. I'm like,
oh my God, that's how Tony does it too. I get a headache. I'm like, I can't.
I know, but I don't know. It's like, it's training your brain, right? Like, so at first you start at 1.2 and then you're like 1.5 and then 1.7. Although I've tried getting into the 3 is too much for me.
Okay. I'll try
but
that.
Maybe that just requires a little bit of pushing. Who knows?
Slight bumps. Okay.
But I mean, it's the same thing when you're investing in real estate, right? Like first you get that one property and that one property feels so overwhelming to manage, to do everything. Then you put on a second and a third and you just kind of keep stretching your capabilities each and every time.
That's true. Like even now, we just launched our first motel, which is pretty major. And if you asked me back in 2020, that's Sara, can you set up, manage a motel? I literally would be like, you are crazy, but that's true. Yeah. I've like stretched my grit. I don't know, where I'm like, I believed in myself. 3 months postpartum, bitch. Yeah. And I did it.
Literally with a new baby strap.
Yes. I was in the thick of it, postpartum. And to just look back and reflect of like my lack of confidence I had with a tiny home, versus how I felt now setting up this 13-unit motel is just so good. I'm so proud of myself. Yes.
Well, it's so funny because I feel like for whatever reason in the last year, especially in the short-term rental space, I feel like there's been a ton of new moms.
Dude, oh my gosh.
Many
it's
new
so
moms.
Cool. Yeah.
But it's like, because I remember, I think for the longest time, I was like, well, I want to do all these things before I have a baby. And
Me
then
too.
I'm like, I've seen so many women like you and like so many others where I'm just like, no, you can do this with a new baby. You can do like, you have the capability and it's like just so inspirational to watch. Cause I even told someone, it's like, I'm like in a phase of really wanting to learn from moms right now. Cause it's just like, there's a whole, like, I feel like you guys also are forced to prioritize things so much better versus when you're single. I'm like, I can do whatever. And it takes me like 10 hours to do something because I can.
Yeah, that's so true. Your priorities shift, you know, when you become a mom, and it's like a different level of like grind now, you know?
Yeah. So I guess like, how has the transition been as a new mom?
It's been a lot. Yeah. You're learning a whole new role, you know, like the most important role that you'll ever have is a mom, you know? So learning just how to be very present, while still growing and being present in your business. it's a tough balancing act. I could not do it without the support and help of our babysitter. Like I 1000% know, like when I had to like fire my first babysitter, but this all happened during like our motel phase, you know? So that it was like 4 weeks of no babysitter. And dude, I was just like losing it. I was like, I cannot like, forget about self-care. Self-care is out the window. Like that is like lowest on the priority list.
I think I loved all your videos where it's like your baby's in the cutest outfits and then there's you with your like hair up in a bun and your sweats.
And that's how it is. I'm just like, okay, like, you know?
Yeah.
You just learn to prioritize. Maybe every day the priorities are different, you know, but it's just a balancing act. I told Tony, you know what, this is a great comment to add here. One day Tony came home and I was like, you will not believe like all the things, or he was complaining about like a long day and he does work a lot. I'm gonna give him that. He works a lot, but I worked a lot too. And I was annoyed with his little comment because I worked a lot and I had the baby.
Yeah.
And I was like, lucky for you, you wore one hat all day.
Yeah.
I was like, you wore your work hat all day. I wore like 8 hats today. I was like, I literally felt like an octopus with 8 different legs doing all of these different things all at once.
Yeah. And just like the brain switch is exhausting.
Yep.
And that's why it's like, you know, a lot of people will talk about when you look into productivity and time management, it's all about like focusing on one thing for its specific time block. But it's like, if you're a mom, you don't have that option.
Yeah, you have that like hour and a half when they're down to really like have that productive work. But if not, you just got to figure it out. Yeah. So yeah, I feel like learning from moms is really smart. You kind of just like have to figure it the fuck out, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like literally life, right? I think that's why I tend to just like jump into things. I'm like, you got to figure it out.
That's
you don't have a choice.
You are going to be the best mom ever then.
I hope so. Got to find a husband first.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So I guess for anyone who is thinking of like jumping into real estate, maybe they're like, you know, a young woman who is in that like, what the frick am I going to do in my life? I don't know. I'm confused. Everything feels weird. Like, what's some advice that you could give to them?
My best advice would be to just jump into all of the education you can expose yourself to. So like Olivia, sounds like you're big into books and podcasts. Yeah. I hate both of those. So if you're not a books and podcast girly and you're more of like, just like meeting people kind of person, that's me, you know? So what really, the light bulb went off for me was when I started to attend these real estate events with Tony. So, you know, when he first was like, come on, let's do the short-term rental thing, I was like, okay, I'm down. But it wasn't until we started to attend conferences, meetups, just meet up with someone that we met on Instagram that we knew does flips. It was meeting real life people that looked like me, talked like me, were around my age that really got me fired up. And I was like, this is kind of what set me off. So,
well, and I feel like even for me, right? Like when I went to your conference and like physically saw other people who were like a couple steps ahead of me, a few steps ahead of me, I was like, oh crap, I can do this too. Yeah. Like they're regular, like amazing people who've accomplished incredible things, but like they were also just regular people, just like you and me. And I think it's like sometimes we do put like big real estate investors on a pedestal. It's not to knock them down at all, but it's more just like they're just people.
Right.
At the end of the day. And if they can do it, you can do it too.
Yeah. And maybe don't even look at those people that you have on a pedestal, you know, like instead try to find, you know, people that, you know, have 1 property, 2 properties, connect with them. See if you guys can meet up for coffee or walk their property together. That's what Tony and I did early on was we met up with a friend of ours, Brian Davila. We connected on Instagram and he was a flipper and we lived in the same city and we just connected on Instagram, asked him if we can walk one of his properties because we were interested in flipping but had never done it. And we left. I literally told Tony, like, what? Like, he doesn't seem smarter than us. Like, I think we could do this, you know?
Completely.
It was just so nice to see it in real life and ask those questions in person and just feel his energy. And, you know, it was just like, I can totally do this.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, especially I feel like in the real estate space, you don't have to be that smart.
Right. Yes.
Like, at the end, don't get me wrong. It's not that it's super easy and nothing's going to go wrong, but it's like everything that you're going to go through, people have gone through it before you.
Totally.
And there are so many resources to tap into, and everything has a solution, right? Like, that just is what it is.
Yeah, that's so true.
And so something that I think you've just done super well is really like growing yours and Tony's social media and really like kind of spearheading that. Yeah. So like what even made you want to get into the social media space of things for your business?
Well, I literally always wanted to be on TV. That was just me. My dream was to be an e-news girl and just talk about celebrity gossip. Oh my God. I literally went to school for broadcast journalism.
See you doing that.
So that was my dream. Like I've just always wanted to be in front of a camera. So I know some people like cringe at the idea of that, but that's just naturally something that I was interested in. But you kind of feel like embarrassed when you first start, you know? So even though I wanted that, I never did it because I was like, I don't know what the fuck to talk about. Like, oh my God, I don't feel confident in how I look or how I talk. So it wasn't until we started our short-term rental journey that I was like, this is the time for me to start my journey sharing my life, you know? So, you know, I've been wanting to do this for since I was in my 20s and it took investing for me to have the guts to pull the camera out, you know? But yeah, so I was just naturally interested and I just thought it was a really good story. You know, I was like, I don't know anybody else that's buying houses and turning them into Airbnbs. So I was like, let me share with my small audience. I think I had like under 1,000 followers. I was like, let me just share what we're doing. And I was just excited. Yeah. I was hyped. I was like, we bought a freaking house. We bought a house that we're not living in, like an extra house. And we're going to decorate it dope as hell. And we're going to rent it out. Like I was just so excited naturally to share that journey. Yeah. So yeah, I just, between all of those reasons combined, I started to do that and I got a lot of traction pretty right away, you know, from like people that naturally just already knew me, friends, family, old classmates, old coworkers. And I don't know, girl, I don't know if it was the algorithming or people just sharing, you know, like, oh, I know this girl that does it, you know, but slowly but surely we grew a small audience and it just, kept growing. And Tony did a great job too. I mean, he started a podcast himself prior to being on the Bigger Pockets show. Yep. And that, you know, attracted a good audience. And then BP actually found him through that platform. So with both of our efforts combined, I think, you know, we have what we have because of that.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I totally understand why people feel cringy. I literally post things every day and still I'm like, oh God, that was cringe. Yeah. But it's like I get it. The opportunities that can really come to you through social media. It's like the one way to really get your face in front of thousands, millions of people that you've never, ever met in your life. And you just never know what opportunities are going to come your way. Like I only found you guys through social media, right? Like, and it's through the podcast, it's through the content that was being put out there.
So if you should change your mindset. It's not cringe.
Oh, I know.
It's not cringe.
I know. And like
look at all, you started this podcast, you started a coaching program.
It's more just like every once in a while you post something, you're like, is that what I want to post?
Yeah.
You're like, whatever, just post, keep going.
Yeah. Thankfully, I don't feel that anymore. Now it's just like, I'm past that, you know, phase of feeling like uncomfy about a post. Because I look at social media as a tool. Yeah. Just like our tech stack to run our properties, social media is crucial to the success of your business. I like that. I like that. Mm-hmm. So, I think when people still have a mindset like, oh, social media is a waste of time. Social media is blah, blah. I'm like, you're looking at it like a consumer, you know? You're not looking at it as a business person. Yeah. And all that can come with putting yourself out there. Completely. You know? So I think when I listen to people like that, I'm like, well, you're not making money off of social media then, you know?
And that's the thing. For me, it's honestly become way more fun because it has a reason for it. Right. Like it's a business. It's bringing more people into the coaching program. It's getting investors. There's a reason behind
Inspiring people, connecting people.
Yeah. And versus before, it's just like, okay, here's me on my vacation.
Right. Totally agree. Yeah.
Which don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place for those too.
Totally. I just see social media as like the new age resume.
Yeah. 100. Yeah. Well, and that's like, even when I'm looking at people, if it's like a coach I want to invest in, or if it's like anyone who comes through me, I like look at their social media.
How do you validate? That you're interested is through social media, right? You know, so yeah. If you are listening to this and you are not focusing on social media and, you know, creating a brand for yourself, putting yourself out there, use this as a sign to get started.
100%.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, we are going to go into the 3 final questions that I like to ask every single person that comes on the show. First one is, what is your ideal perfect day? What does that look like?
Oh, that's a fun question. I love that it's not real estate.
Yes.
Okay, my ideal perfect day is probably waking up pretty early, but still feeling rested. Like I didn't feel forced to wake up early. I just naturally was like, oh my God, it's only like 6:30. I feel great. And then I would love to just have a cozy morning with my family at home.
No.
Yeah. And then probably, I don't know if it should be like a professional answer or...
Can be whatever you want, girl.
Well, I wouldn't want to like do work. Like I still want work. I still want to be making money.
Right.
You know?
But not necessarily like working.
Yes. So I just want to be at Disneyland. Let's go to the beach a little bit, get Airbnb bookings coming in, getting the notifications, sign a contract with somebody for social, have a nice dinner. Yeah. And put my baby in and take a nice bubble bath with her. Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, question number 2 is, what is your mantra?
My mantra?
Yeah, or just something that you tell yourself consistently that gets you through.
Yeah, that's a good question too. You should have prepped me with these. I don't have like a go-to, but sometimes when I'm feeling down about myself, or like I said, I still feel like sometimes I have imposter syndrome or I don't know. I just like don't believe in myself sometimes. I just remind myself that like I am that girl.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh wait, I love that. Oh my gosh, that should be written out. I am that girl.
Yeah, you know, and it's just like, don't forget, like, you know, you are that girl.
I love that.
So maybe that is my mantra.
That is perfect. Okay, last question. What does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means happiness. It's not about money so much for me. It's just like truly finding peace and happiness within yourself, your life, your family, your career. That is my ultimate goal, is just to find complete happiness in every pillar of life. That is wealth to me. Yeah.
Well, and that's the funny thing is like for most people, money is not actually what wealth is. It's what it can do for you and provide for you more than anything else. I love that. Well, so where can anyone find you on the socials if they want to reach out? Maybe they want to join Alpha Host Coaching, or if they want to join, like see what you're doing with your Airbnbs or anything like that.
The best place to connect with me, guys, is on Instagram. I actually respond to all DMs. So you can find me at Sara Rad Robinson. Yeah, that's probably the best place. So I would love to connect with people in your audience. You attract the best kind of people. So there's more Olivias in the world. I want to be friends with you.
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Queen. And you look so fabulous.
So do you.
Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Okay.
Yay!
Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.